Thank you all for coming today. It's great to see everybody and some familiar faces. Yes, I'm Becky, a Chartered Occupational Psychologist, and I'm facilitating the event today alongside Jonathan Rook, the MD of Sova Middle East. We're also joined by Yousef Jeelani, a specialist in talent acquisition at Mubadala, and he will be present for our live interview section. So really the aim of this is we're running a monthly series of bite-sized and professional events. We want to create a community of assessment and development professionals in the region in order to share insights into, I suppose, how to make assessment processes more efficient. We're going to be showcasing a topic, different one each month, so do let us know if there's anything that would be of interest to you, or if you would like to be a panelist or a speaker or be interviewed, so do let us know after the event. This morning is going to be split into two sections. We're going to start with a quick intro to Sova and a bit of a demonstration on the system. We're then going to go into the interview with Yousef. And then after that, we've got a question and answer session for Yousef. So please do forward us, write in your questions for Yousef, and we can ask him at the end. And also if you have any questions for Jonathan as well. So I'm going to now hand over to John, who's going to just give us a brief intro of Sova and start us off. So over to you, John.
Yeah, thanks, Becky. And yeah, welcome everyone. Hope everyone's well. It's good to have everyone joining today. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about, Becky's already done the introductions there. So what we're going to do is just talk a little bit about Sova. We'll talk a bit about the technology that we're using. And then, as Becky mentioned, we'll get into more of a discussion, which hopefully makes it a bit more interactive for you as the audience. So just in terms of who Sova are, so we were founded back in 2015 with the aim of improving assessment practices. And particularly what we do is we blend the best of occupational psychology and the science of assessment with the latest in terms of assessment technology. So what we've been doing for the past 5 years is building up our platform, obviously increasing our client base and expanding globally. And where we've got to now is that we're working towards our latest iteration of the platform, which is fully virtual and includes engaging and immersive user experience. We can configure and customize rapidly, I would say, very cost effective as well. And it's based on some of the latest technologies, not just the algorithms we've been using for decades in psychometrics, but also looking at some of the artificial intelligence and machine learning opportunities that we have and how we can do that fairly and ethically. Just in terms of our global presence, so as I mentioned, we're headquartered in the UK, offices in London, Ireland. We also have one obviously in Dubai. We're into our 3rd year of operation here. We also have offices in Melbourne in Australia. And the other point to note is that we do have partners as well across the globe. So we have a strong partner program, partner director, and lots of different projects going on in different regions. Just thought it was worth picking up on some of the trends that are influencing talent strategy. And some of you might have seen some of these types of things before. There's lots of papers on this topic around at the moment, but just to sort of highlight these because it's useful for the discussion. But in terms of the organizational change that we see, I mean, this has always been a constant, but obviously with the context of last year and the pandemic, you know, there's been some acceleration in this area. But what we're seeing from a talent perspective is the need to constantly upskill and reskill is the other term that's used as well. But what are the skills and the competencies which are going to be important for organizations moving forward as they've had to pivot and adapt to the new way of working? It's things like being agile, being analytical, being creative, being resilient in the face of change and uncertainty, and also the ability to work with computers, obviously. So I think the organizational change that we're seeing across the region and globally, that's underpinned by some specific requirements from a talent perspective. And the second one, just about digital and technological transformation. Obviously, the move towards digital and the transformation programs going on across organizations, that continues to be a strong driving force. And we're seeing that across all different industries, but particularly retail and e-commerce, for example. And the third one, in terms of the changing demographics, obviously there's been a huge shift in terms of the way the workforce is set up at the moment. I think we're going to see more of that this year. But if you look in the UAE, for example, I mean, I read a figure which talked about 900,000 job losses. So whilst some of the expats might have returned home to their home countries, it also means there's a huge surplus of talent within the market. So how do we then begin to assess who are the best people and who are the best fit people with the required new competencies for the new way of working? The fourth one, just to pick up, is around employment relationships. Obviously, because of the virtual arrangements that organizations have made, there's effectively a new psychological contract in place for most employees, and the way in which they are set up to work has changed. Whilst organizations want to get people back in the office, the virtual working continues to be a driving force. And the last one, just around corporate social responsibility, sustainability and business ethics continues to be a big theme. So it's not just about turning profits, but are organizations contributing purpose, and are they conducting business in a sustainable fashion? And therefore, that has some implications for talent as well. Okay, just in terms of some of the business outcomes we measure, we do this with clients on most of our projects. So we're always keen to see how much of an impact our assessments have had. So if you think about where we're positioned as digital virtual assessment provider, we are a software firm essentially, but with some expertise in psychology. If you compare it to the traditional method, we see lots of capability around identifying high performers more accurately, increases in completion rates, our ability to sift out, especially for volume campaigns, being able to make the right decisions about talent and ensure that we have a diverse workforce, and to make sure that that's done in a fair and inclusive way. And obviously the candidate experience as well is something that we really focus on. So to ensure that it doesn't feel like candidates are just taking exams. So from a talent perspective, that's about engaging them and providing them with an interface which is immersive. We will be showing a quick example of that on our platform a little bit later on. And then from an assessment, that was testing, but from an assessment perspective, we now run fully virtual assessment centers. So where, even 5 years ago, paper-based was popular, some companies have moved to doing digital assessments, so just digitizing the paper-based process. But we now have a fully virtual interface where we can link assessors and candidates or delegates with their respective assessors, and to have a fully virtual experience, and no need for the face-to-face interaction, all the cost that goes with that. But more importantly, we also know that the virtual experience actually improves the ability of assessors to actually assess people, and also to record data, and to ensure that the accuracy is maintained above what you would see from a paper experience. Okay. So I've talked a little bit about the platform, but just in terms of what that looks like for us at Sova. So as I mentioned, we underpin everything with a unified candidate experience. So we don't want candidates going off and clicking on lots of different links and lots of different emails, which are going to get lost in junk folders, etc. So we have one link typically that we'll send to a candidate, and that will have all their assessment tasks or assessment center access contained within that link. And we we can put all this on an immersive homepage as well as a more traditional interface. And where we started in 2015 was around our personality and cognitive tools. But over the last 2 or 3 years, we've added numerous different proprietary tools like our 360 feedback, our video interview platform, and obviously the digital assessment center as well. And ultimately, what we're trying to do with this is to ensure the analytics are all in one central place, and that therefore they can be used to make some sensible decisions about talent and some accurate decisions about talent. And as I mentioned, we're also doing a lot with machine learning in terms of being able to adjust the assessments depending on what the analysis of the group data is telling us about certain items within that assessment, which may need to be adjusted. And all of this is underpinned, as I mentioned, by multi-tenant SaaS technology, which is highly scalable. We have no upper limit for the amount of completions that can be, or the amount of candidates that can be on our platform at any one time. And obviously with the latest security protocols in place. And mobile delivery as well is the other point to mention about the technology. Since 2015, we've been running assessments on mobile, but all of our assessments can be completed on any mobile or tablet or laptop device. So just to mention about our approach to assessing talent. So as I mentioned, from the platform point of view, it's about having a multi-method, multi-stage approach in place and combining this with the analytics capability. And from a candidate perspective, that should be seamless, digitized and engaging. And this is really where assessment has been moving over the last 5 years. And through this, we can ensure something which is consistent and high quality, and also to ensure that we have a centralized data set which we can use to make powerful predictions about the talent that we're assessing. And obviously everything's fully digital and fully virtual. Just talk a bit about our approach to whole person assessment. So we're not just measuring personality factors or cognitive aptitude. We can measure the whole raft of different individual differences and individual factors. So this includes competencies, it can include technical skills and ability. It could include cultural fit, and also some of the other aspects around motivations and drivers and experience of candidates as well. So we can measure any of these factors on our platform, and through that, you can have a centralized data point for managing talent. So just to visualize this a bit more, so as I mentioned, we're not just talking about the psychometric data, it's the competency data as well. It could be interview data, aspirational data, and work experience. And what we can do is we can set up algorithms which can look across that data and then give a single intelligent output in terms of a report or a dashboard score. And that can then help us to make promotion or development decisions, but also obviously from a recruitment perspective to have a look at the best fit and the ranked candidate list as well. And just a note about virtualization. So we know that there's been significant changes to recruitment approaches. And I think just to help sort of pick out some of the data from that graph, which you might not be able to see too clearly, but basically what we're saying here is that the traditional face-to-face interactions, such as the assessment centres, the interviews, have now very much moved to fully virtual. So we've seen a big shift in terms of organisations wanting to move to that new way of working. And just a note on the virtual versus digital assessment centres. As I mentioned, digitalisation has been in place quite widely for a few years now, but the fully virtual experience where you can connect over a medium such as Zoom has been in place on our platform since last year. So we can essentially replicate the face-to-face assessment event, but just over virtual platforms. And the feedback we've had actually is that it's actually very enjoyable, and the assessors also like it from the ability to be able to focus on their candidates a little more even than they would do face-to-face. And there's also obvious cost efficiencies that also come along with the virtual process. So just to give you an idea about the assessment centre event, so if you're running an assessment centre for talent acquisition, we can set up everything on the platform with a number of pre and post event activities and touch points. And effectively, all the pre-event activities can be managed through the system with scheduling and invitations to assessment centres. And then afterwards, automated feedback reports can be provided for the candidates, or they can be provided to assessors who might want to edit them further. And particularly, actually, if you're doing development, that might be a requirement to integrate different things into those reports. But from an assessor perspective, everything is on a live results dashboard. So the scores will be coming in on the dashboard in real time, and you can see those coming through into a dashboard, which can then be analysed. You can take data extracts and do further work with the data. Okay, so just to give you a quick demonstration of the platform, I'm just going to switch to my browser. So as I mentioned about the interactive homepage, so typically, even for psychometrics that we run off the platform now, we tend to use these interactive homepages. You can have all of these tasks displayed on a more traditional interface, but this is a way of engaging your candidates or your delegates a little bit more, and you can present any sort of information or actual task that you want the candidates to do. So here we've got some behavioural questionnaires, some cognitive aptitude, a situational judgment test. But up front, we might include some information about the company. And within these hotspots, you can put any information you want to convey about the company within these windows. We might have a number of different questionnaires, which we might want to, any information we might want to gather about candidates, we can include. And as I mentioned, the more traditional psychometric tests we can also host, as well as the situational judgment tests as well, which are also popular for screening purposes. So you can see here, actually, this is now actually trying to record my response. And within these hotspots as well, you can access the actual assessment day tasks. So you might have an interview, a presentation exercise, and a group exercise, for example. And up front, you would maybe provide the candidates with some further information about what they're being asked to do. As I mentioned, because this is a fully virtual platform, you can connect any two people via a link which will appear here. And so when they click on this, that will take them through into a virtual meeting room where they can actually interact with, maybe it's the hiring manager or one of the directors within the company. And for the assessment tasks themselves, they can connect directly with their assessors. So they'll be given some instructions. This is just an interview, but when they're ready to connect, they just would click this, which would take them off, in this case, into Teams, which I won't go into. And then they would complete the interview that way. For the presentation or case study exercises, they can record all their responses on the platform and submit them through into the platform, which can then be scored, again, virtually, no need for paper or anything like that. From an assessor perspective, this can also, they have a different access into the system. The schedule is already going to be set up to connect them at the right time. There's a number of different information hotspots we can give them just to remind them what they're doing on the day, remind them about competency frameworks. Maybe you might present some best practice models as well, such as the ORSE methodology from an assessment perspective, just to remind them of some of the best practice guidance, because obviously you would do this face to face, but now we can present all this digitally. And when they're ready to assess their participants, these will appear depending on who's been scheduled down here. So I can see this is the participant. There's an interview here for me to score, and I might have conducted that interview myself. And when I'm ready to assess them, I can move into this section, which will allow me to record some responses according to different scoring matrices. I might assign a 3 for this person here. And you can see you can move through each section. And the interview questions are actually displayed here on the side with the probes as well. Just to give you a quick preview into the back-end platform, this is the results dashboard. So for the example I've just shown you, you can see the assessment tasks appear here and any of the other tasks which we might have given them. And through this part of the platform, I can take my data extracts, I can download reports and project data. And obviously from here, I also control the schedule for the day. And you can see here, this is what typically used to be done in Excel, can now be done in the system. And I can add my participants and assessors to the platform here. Okay. I mean, there's lots of things which you might want to consider if you're thinking about running virtual assessment or development centers, but the technology and ensuring that everything is set up from a company perspective is important. People have access to the right browsers and the right type of Wi-Fi connections. And obviously the scheduling and organizing still needs to be completed, although obviously it's going to be completed digitally. That still needs to be done. So there's still some work to do. We do actually have an automated scheduling feature, which is going to be available shortly. We've been working with it on one of our other platforms, but that enables you to, particularly if you have, in excess of 100 candidates, for example, the ability to automatically schedule those to relevant assessors and times. So connecting those assessors and candidates, think about the type of platform you might want to use and how you would like people to interact. And obviously the content and the activities need to be uploaded onto the system. So we can pretty much add any type of exercise which organizations might have, and we can put that onto the platform. And we can digitize those paper-based exercises. And then obviously the data capturing and the tracking scores, that's something for assessors to do. There's a little bit of training sometimes required for the assessors to ensure that they're inputting the right information into the system, because the system will only capture what they enter, and that will therefore impact the type of reports which are available. And then at the end, the wash up and decision making, there's still probably some further work for the assessors to do to understand how they might want to rate or assign different candidates. So yes, I think in terms of the lessons learned that we've had from running the virtual assessment centers, it's around testing the process, making sure that you practice, consider all the different scenarios and the things which could impact the effectiveness of the sessions, ensuring that you're aware of any IT or security settings, and obviously we work with organisations to make sure that that's in place. And the clear briefing and comms still need to be given to candidates. And think about the support rooms. So we also have facility on the platform where candidates can come into a virtual greeting room before they actually go off into the individual rooms. So you can support that virtually like you would do in a face-to-face environment. And also thinking about group size, again, the same sort of best practice would apply for the virtual centres when you compare that with the group, the actual face-to-face centres. So not having overly large groups on the virtual platform is a good idea. And just being able to make the best use of the technology available, because all of this is available now, and it's it's relatively cheap, and it's very powerful if it can be deployed, especially for global workforces. And ultimately, what we're trying to do is capitalize on the efficiencies of this. As I say, it's not just about saving money, but it's also about improving the efficacy and the precision of the process ultimately through the virtual capture of data and ensuring that that's all in one place. And lastly, just making candidates as comfortable as possible. Some candidates obviously won't have been through this type of process before, so just ensuring they're comfortable with the technology and what's been asked. Okay, that's probably all I'm going to cover for now in terms of Sova. So we're going to move into some further questions with Yousef, I think, now.
Okay, thank you, John. Thank you. So first I'm going to introduce Yousef to you. So he's an expert in the area of talent acquisition. He holds a bachelor degree in business. He's got over 8 years of talent acquisition experience, in-house advisory and consultancy. He's been with Mubadala investment company for over 3 years as a talent acquisition consultant, and he provides advisory and support in his role to corporate leaders. Before this, he also worked in multiple recruitment agencies, and he's just an all-round expert in this area. So welcome, Yousef.
Thank you, Becky, and thank you, John, for inviting me. And hello, everyone. I don't think we can see any of the participants. Okay, no. Attendees. Okay, I see that.
I can see them on my screen. So no, thank you. Yes, is there anything else to add to your impressive CV?
Oh, thank you very much for the invitation. I just want to say I'd like to share views that I've learned throughout my experience and through my network. I'm not representing Mubadala or how they run their recruiting process, but this is just my views of how I see the organization and how I see the talent acquisition function evolving in the next coming years.
Yeah, excellent. No, it's good. Yes, to have all of your experience and knowledge. So great. So can you just tell me then, firstly, a bit around, what are the key business drivers that you see when organizations go through transformation?
So if I look at talent acquisition, some of the areas that a lot of businesses are focusing on is how do we make the hiring managers satisfaction, or let's say experience, how do we elevate that, right? That's one of the key things. How do we make sure the hiring manager can get someone very soon and that meets all the requirements and that really, is integrated to the business? That's the first thing. Hiring managers, expectations, experience, etc. Secondly, on the candidate side, you have hundreds of people that are applying that want to work with you. How do you maintain the candidate experience if someone gets the job or does not get the job? So what kind of communication do you have? What is the assessment process? What is the application process? So you have hiring manager experience, candidate experience. And thirdly, we look at technology. So technology is more of an enabler. So looking at technology to help drive those decisions, to help give recommendations and advisory to hiring management to say, hey, you're looking for individuals at this specific role. These are the kind of things and trends we see based on our historic data, based on the market intelligence, and then also using technology to make the process for candidates to apply, to get assessed, to get feedback, to be able to check in with the recruiter, to look at frequently asked questions for the candidate. So these are the three areas I would say any organization would consider as key drivers to transforming the way they look at hiring people.
Okay, great. That's excellent. And what specific elements of talent acquisition did you decide to focus on? So how do you decide where to place technology, I guess, in the talent acquisition process?
So it starts from, I personally like to focus more on the candidate experience. I think it's very important to understand the talent pool that you want to hire, especially the scarce talent pool, and understand the way they think. So if I was looking for a job in finance, what are the things I would do? Would I go online and apply? Would I ask my friends? Would I go out on a networking event and try and find out what are the best finance jobs? So understanding the mindset of the talent pool and coming up with a list of questions they have and making sure that we address these questions throughout the process. So if someone wants to apply, and generally, if he's a finance individual and he would go into, I don't know, let's say an accounting certification board and you look for jobs there, I'd make sure my company advertises there. If I'm looking for someone within technology and this individual uses GitHub or uses tech websites, I make sure that my company is presenting its brand there. So focusing on the employer brand. And throughout the process, looking at what are some of the bottlenecks that you face, asking those questions to candidates and focusing on the pain points and making that process seamless for the candidates. So if candidates are happy, you'll be able to get quality candidates and then look at the hiring manager and what they're looking for, right? So the source of talent is the candidates and the source of the best referrals are candidates. So understanding the process and the areas they need help with and focusing on improving that from the application all the way to the first day, it's very important that you get information in an easy way. You don't have to bombard them with a lot of questions, but maybe throughout the process, you ask a question. Are you happy? What are you happy about? What are you not happy about, right? So those elements are the things that I would focus on whenever it comes to digitizing and making sure that you don't lose the human touch. Although you want to digitize a lot of things, you still want to be able to speak to the candidate if something comes up. If there are repetitive questions, you come up with, frequently asked questions and you have answers throughout the website, throughout the application process, but certain things individuals need to be able to access you. So you always allow that option, but based on the pain points and based on the data that you'd have, you'd be able to understand what areas you can automate and what areas you still need to have the human touch.
Yeah, no, great. And I think really what's coming through here is the candidate experience and, thinking of the candidate when you're utilizing new technology, not just thinking the machine's going to take over. It is really about the people using it. So no, that's excellent. And what technology have you considered or have you seen being used?
So one of the things that I see has been increasingly used by a lot of organizations is things such as video screening. So video screening is around for almost 10 years. But nowadays we see that hiring managers want to get that extra detail before they commit for a 45-minute interview. So if you are sure the person has all the qualifications, all the experience, but there are a few technical questions you want to get out of the way before you meet a person, you want to be able to, also it gives a chance for the candidate to understand what to expect in the role, right? To be able to ask questions in 6 to 10 minutes, and that will at least give you a sense of the individual. You won't get the answers. I've also heard few managers that say that, look, from video interviews, I'm able to make 50% of my decision. Because if I focus on the critical areas for success for this role, and if I ask that individual to answer that, and you can re-record it, unlike interviews, and you can re-record, get opinions from others, and really objectively look at everyone answering the same question, we're able to differentiate the great from the good, and you're also able to use that in the future when you're considering other data points to make a decision, right? So again, the interview will not give you everything. A video interview is not the solution, but it can facilitate a better decision making. So if you're able to get, let's say, a video interview, you're able to get psychometrics, ability, case study, and a physical interview. And again, throughout the process, you explain the purpose of these assessments to the candidate and make it seamless. You don't want a candidate to spend 3-4 hours in the assessment process and then find out, what have I got on of, what do I get out of this, right? You need to make it seamless, and you explain the process and the reason behind it, and you share some of the feedback with the candidate, right? With development reports and things like that, which will help them improve on themselves and also understand what organizations are looking for when they hire for specific roles, right? So interview is something that I feel as a technology, a lot of organizations are using it. And also recruiters, I mean, instead of calling 20 individuals asking the same questions, now you can automate this, right? You can have this recorded, you can share it with other recruiters, you can think about, you know, getting quick feedback on with the hiring manager. You know, you make it an open discussion. So I find that as something that will really help make better screening decisions.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think, you know, using assessments to be a standardized and objective, you know, is only going to give you the best results and help you recruit the best people. So what sort of challenges have you had from the business or from candidates regarding using technology, and how have you overcome these?
So with any change, a lot of resistance. I mean, with any change, you always get resistance. So there are questions from line managers. Hey, how effective is the video interview? Are you sure candidates would answer? What if candidates decide not to participate in such a role? So there is an element of education. There is an element of sharing industry benchmarks. There is an element of asking them to try it and see for themselves whether they can make a better hiring decision. So initially, even from candidates, they'd ask the question, but when you explain the situation to them and you explain, I'm sorry, Becky, I think can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah, I missed the last sentence.
Becky, can you hear me now?
Yes, can you hear me? Yeah, can you hear me?
Oh. Sorry about that.
That's okay, no problem. I only missed a sentence.
Okay, so I was saying that some of the challenges that we have is even from the candidates, when you explain to them the purpose and you explain the reasoning, they tend to be more accommodating. And now more than ever, more individuals are more and more interested to get quality jobs, and they know a lot of good jobs does have a comprehensive assessment process. So they are willing to invest time in such processes.
Yeah, no, that's excellent. Again, I think considering the candidate experience, isn't it, and sort of preempting questions or challenges they might have. But I suppose the way the world's going, everyone is so used to technology, it would now perhaps seem strange, well, particularly strange to complete a pencil and paper assessment, and now probably strange to come and have a live interview. You know, not use technology. So no, that's good. And any tips, just while we're on this topic, for clients or organizations thinking about introducing technology but worried about it? Any tips, any advice?
I think you have to try it. I mean, if you think about 10-15 years ago, we never used to believe we could conduct virtual interviews and make decisions, right? So now here we are making these decisions. So this is the way technology is moving forward. Try it before you make the assumption that it won't work, and pilot it maybe in one unit or one specific area where you're okay, and maybe it's not a critical area. And if it works out, start rolling it out at other areas and ask candidates for feedback. Hey, did you feel comfortable doing this assessment? Or did this part of technology, did you find it was too automated and it didn't help you? Do you needed a human touch, and why? You know, and make the assumption based on information you get from people. And even from hiring teams, you need to ask them, if there are something that are concerning you, what are they? And what is it different? You know, one of the things also you need to keep in mind is we're getting busier and busier. And if you have access to technology, you can do things at your own time, you know, so you don't necessarily, you're not time bound, and schedule isn't an issue. You won't have a last minute change. So technology in a way has helped free our time and helped us be more flexible, helped us, you know, have let's say, helped us have more flexibility on when we are able to respond. At times, individuals may be in an interview virtually from office or different places where they're stressed, where they might not be able to perform at their best, right? So you have to be able to give that flexibility. So I personally encourage everyone to try a specific technology before making that judgment, or ask people who've tried it. That's how I would.
That's really good advice. Yeah, I think what you're saying is just go for it. Go for it on a one campaign, or something that you're recruiting for or developing. We've seen clients using it for development purposes to try it first before going into the selection piece. So no, that's excellent. And again, you're talking about the evaluation and refining it. I think no new process is ever going to be perfect, whether you're using technology or not. It's about starting somewhere, refining, adapting, and seeing what's needed. So what would you say then are some key lessons learned from you personally around utilizing new technology?
I mean, like I mentioned, there is some resistance, but you need to try it yourself. I mean, one of the things that I would do is I'd get in touch with people that I've worked with in the past, and I'd ask them, hey, I'm trying something new. What do you think? Let's try it out first and give me feedback objectively, because I think if you have that discussion and you get feedback from individuals that you trust, you're able to make the assessment. If it doesn't work out, that's fine, but at least you've tried and you got that feedback and you know the reason why. For me personally, I think I wouldn't go as far as to say AI, etc. That is a little bit too much, from my personal opinion. I think you still need a bit of a human judgment when it comes to making certain judgment on CVs. I don't think AI could definitely filter out all the best CVs. It may help in the ranking to some extent, but it doesn't mean you completely reject a person without giving them a chance. But I would definitely encourage individuals to try things such as video screening, look at different areas of the assessments, looking at maybe scheduling tools. These are certain things that would help candidates. Maybe you don't have to wait for a candidate to respond by email. It's automated. That could be very helpful. I would encourage individuals to automate some of the candidate updates, make sure that the issue we have quite a lot in the Middle East is a lot of people apply for jobs and they never hear back. Right? Yeah. Even if you don't get the job, it feels great if you can hear back and say, hey, we had a look at your CV and this is why you didn't work out. Or people who have been interviewed and never heard back. So how do you use technology to make sure that every couple of weeks there's an update that goes out, and if there's 2 updates, a phone call needs to go out. So these things are important, and these are some of the lessons I've learned, is to use technology to enable you to make to elevate the experience for the candidate or for the hiring manager.
Yeah, that's good. I think that sums it up nicely. It's not just about the candidates, it's the hiring manager as well. It's your time. If you have all of the interviews saved, when you've got time, you can sit down, go through. You don't have to take that time out of the business. So definitely, making it more efficient. And I suppose, how can we leverage technology further? I know you touched on AI a bit, but what would you like to see, or what would make your life easier?
So I think one of the important factors is the talent during the recruiting process. There's a lot of information, a lot of individuals that we meet, and a lot of this information may not be digitized, may not be used in the future, right? So you need to be in a position where you're able to collect the data of the individual that is being hired throughout the employment process, right? And also the individuals.
Yes, I can hear you now. Your sound went. It's fine.
Yeah, I was saying you're able to have a talent pool of silver medalists, individuals that were interviewed and they were good, that went to the final stage. You need to have that data available and all of their, let's say, assessment data to be able to digitize from the first time you make a call until, let's say, a person leaves the business. You need to have all of that information with you to be able to react quicker for the business. I saw a study somewhere in Ghana that says 5% of the talent, organizations have 5% of the talent pool tapped. So if there are individuals that apply 5 to 10 times before even having an interview. So there is there's a lot of opportunities for us to look at information that we gather from the application process, from the candidate, to help make our lives easier, to help identify people quicker, to help reduce the cost of hiring, and to use that data to make decisions. Just because someone interviewed last year in another unit and they were good doesn't mean you can't consider them. Let's look at them first, right? Let's look at how many interviews they had. Maybe you don't need to have as much interviews. You can use some of the feedback from those experts that have met them, right? So these are things I feel like we need to leverage more of. And I think it comes with digitizing some of the processes at the front end to make sure that that is integrated with, you know, your performance systems, your learning systems, your promotion systems, even the offboarding. And it can help the employee to develop throughout the process, right? So that is an area I feel like we could leverage more of.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent thought, idea. I think we spent a lot of time focusing on the candidate during the process, and then for the hiring manager afterwards with the dashboard and the results and so on. But yeah, making the front end, you know, just a bigger part of the assessment process. And then, as you say, someone might apply for a role and not be as suited. They might be more suited to a different one, so they can be encouraged to apply. Maybe have sort of like a virtual portal for them, or community. It's good for your brand as well and your organization. So no, excellent. And anything else you're excited about for the future of talent acquisition?
I think in the future, and maybe 5-10 years from now, you would, based on the data that you may be able to, let's say if you're able to integrate, you're able to say, you could, let's say predictive analytics, you're able to say, if I want to hire an individual in human resources, you need to look at these specific companies, and you may want to advertise here, and you may want to look at people with this specific scores. These individuals are highly likely to perform better than looking at other individuals, because, you know, we have data over the past 5 years, we've hired 15 people and we see a trend. So being able to come with those trends and, you know, making those decisions, hiring decisions is something I'm looking forward to, let's say.
Yeah, no, that would be amazing to have all of the data and do lots of analysis on that and make predictions, like you say. So good. So no, great. So thank you very much for the interview. I'm now going to hand it over to the participants and see if anyone's got any questions for you. So yeah, does anyone have any questions for Yousef? Or does anyone have any thoughts themselves about talent acquisition, or any insights that they would like to share? Yeah. Or anything from you, John?
No, I thought really good thoughts there from Yousef. Yeah, let's see if we can expedite some of the automated decision making you were talking about. I think, yeah, without being sort of too ambitious about it, I mean, where we're trying to get to with the sort of augmentation through the platform and for the decision making is where, you know, the machine learning algorithm which sits underneath can begin to make recommendations about, exactly as you say, if you're looking for a specific profile, this is, you know, you would put in the parameters of that profile into our system, and it will give you an assessment which will directly tap all the competencies, the skills, and the experience which is needed for that role, and it will put together an assessment in an automated fashion which you can then deploy. So whilst it might not sort of say, you know, ultimately, like you say, you need human judgment to say yes or no on certain decisions, and that's that maybe is the sort of 10 to 15 year horizon. But I mean, we're trying to accelerate that process so that we can have everything off the shelf in our system, which can then be configured and customized in an automated fashion. So yeah, no, really interesting thoughts.
Yeah, really good.
I just want to, Claire, when it comes to assessments is just going to be additional insights to help you make a decision. Ultimately, you as a human need to make that decision, regardless, right? it's a tool. So there are certain individuals that say, oh, if the person scores 90 and his personality is like this, automatically he's great. But that doesn't mean it. You need to, again, use your intuition, but use these tools to support your decision making, right? Maybe it could be 10% on the cognitive score. It could be another 10% on how well he's answered the video screening, another 20-30% on the video interview, and another 10% based on feedback, 360 feedback from the peers, you know. So you need to make sure that you build a robust framework and you don't only depend on the assessment or only on the interview. So you need to have a mix of tools. And it's just out for all the participants that it helps you make better decisions, right? So it does not replace any of us. It does not, you know, give you a yes or no answer. It's just additional tools to help facilitate better decisions. And I think we need to use it more in other areas of HR, you know, to look at how do we go about identifying learning needs? How do we go about look at readiness? If somebody is going to be promoted, if somebody is going to be, you know, because what happens is you feel comfortable in asking many questions to a lot of candidates, but you don't feel comfortable asking your own employees certain questions. So that are certain things that also we need to see organizations do more. And it doesn't mean it makes HR people not competent. It just means that HR is using the tools that are there to help make better decisions and objective decisions, let's say.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think, like you said, it's to make it more efficient, really, and more objective, and yeah, an enhanced experience for all, for candidates and hiring managers. So thank you, Yousef. Excellent final thoughts. If anyone does have any questions they want to ask Yousef, then please do send in and we can forward to him. I'm sure we'll have him back as a guest speaker another time as well. And yeah, we're just going to, I think we just got a couple of slides then to close. Yeah, I think, John, if you move on these slides. Yeah, so just really, I suppose, any questions for us or any questions about Sova or the events, or any thoughts, any feedback while we're talking about feedback as well? Yeah, or please do get in touch with us afterwards. So the next steps, we're going to send you all a copy of this presentation so you can look through it. If you would like a system demo in more detail, please let us know. And also we've got another event coming up on the 26th of April, and this will be another workshop style event. So please do come along. Please do ask your colleagues, share and promote us, and yeah, help us to build a community of assessment professionals. So thank you once again to Yousef, and thank you very much to Jonathan.